Hello and welcome to the Girl That Went For It podcast. I'm your host, Johanna Scholz, also known as Johanna Liana on Instagram, and author of Believe in Life, How to Dance in the Rain. If you want to live your dream life and become the best version of yourself, then this podcast is for you. I hope that I can inspire and encourage you to never give up and to always believe in yourself. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Johanna_Liana, for daily content. And now enjoy this episode.
I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast yet, but in case you didn't know, I published my new book, Living with Purpose, a daily reflection for personal empowerment. So if you are looking for, I hope I post this podcast, I remember to post it before Christmas. So if you're looking for a little Christmas present, then this might be the perfect one for you, for your bestie, for your mum, whoever you want to gift it, for your dad, for your sibling. In this book, I share daily reflections. I share little reminders that even me, I wrote it, but even me picking up the book and reading it always reminds me to see the good, to listen to my intuition, to follow my dream, and I hope it will remind you to do so too, and I hope it inspires you to live your best life. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, and you can have a look at my book, and you can also have a look at my story highlights on my Instagram, and I also actually have an Instagram account only for my book, which is called Johanna Liana Words. Maybe I just tag that in the show notes as well, so if you want to have a look inside the book, just check out my Instagram. Today, I want to start the episode with a little reflection because we are sometimes just really busy in our day, week, month, and it's just really good to look back and reflect. So if you can grab a notebook, grab your journal, or just listen and answer the questions in your head. So the first question is, looking back at last week, think about 3 things that you are grateful for. 3 things that happened, 3 things you did, whatever made you feel grateful or makes you feel grateful now. Looking back at last week, are you happy with how your week looked or turned out? Is that how your future you would live? If not, what could you do differently? Does your future you make more time for herself, for example? Does your future you get up earlier or didn't? Does your future you not hit the snooze button, for example? Does she go to sleep earlier? Think about, your last week, and if you're happy with how your last week looked and what you can change next week to become your future self, the future self you strive to be. So give you a little bit of time to reflect on that. Maybe think about, again, 3 things you could do different next week that you could implement into your daily life. Maybe you want to live a bit healthier, so for the future week, for the next week, you can implement some time, like you can block some time to prep your breakfast, for example, or you block time to go for a walk. Whatever it is that your future you is like, start today. Start showing up as her today. So think about how you can implement that in next week. And the next step is to affirm these things. But instead of saying, I will go to bed earlier or I will get up earlier, for example, if that's something you want to do, instead of saying I will, start saying I am. I am going to bed earlier. I am getting up earlier. Because I read this other quote and I think it's so important, and I mentioned it in my story before. I will is the confession of I am not. So you're basically saying something that you're not and you will be in the future, but you are. Everything you need is within you. You already are. So instead of saying, I will do this and that, I will start this project, I will start a podcast, start saying, I am. I am starting this podcast. I am starting this project. I am getting up earlier. I am going to sleep earlier. As soon as you say I am, you will shift things in your mindset, because I will is something that's going to happen in the future. And for your mind, for your conscious mind, that is something happening in the future. It's not something that's happening right now. So whatever it is you want to manifest, act as if. Say I am. And just another reminder, everything you have is already within you. You already know what you want. You already know what you want your life to look like, if you allow yourself to know. If you make the time for yourself to figure out what it is that you want. You have to listen within you. You already know your vision. Don't get distracted from the outside world. Start spending time with yourself. And that's actually something I want to talk about in this episode. Surprise. In this episode today, we are going to talk about you, obviously. Your unique path, your expansion and contraction. I'm going to share some of my experience about expansion and contraction. But that doesn't mean, again, you to compare yourself to me, because we are all on our unique paths. We all had different experience in our lifetime. We all have different versions that we are in at the moment, and we all have different goals. So please don't compare yourself to me. I love that you're listening to my podcast, and I'm all for getting inspiration. I'm all for getting a mentor. I'm all for signing up for coachings and learning and expanding. But in the end, it all comes back to you and what's your dream life, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about expansion. So basically, expansion means stepping out of your comfort zone, making your comfort zone bigger, expanding your comfort zone, right? Expanding your experience. What might feel for an expansion for me might not feel for an expansion for you. What might feel for contraction to me might feel like an expansion for you. So everyone is different. So it doesn't make sense to compare your life to anyone else's. For example, you moved into a different city because you wanted to step out of your comfort zone. You wanted to expand your experience. You wanted to make new experience. Now you've been living in this new city for like 2 years, and you're realizing more and more that you actually want to go home to this town that you grew up in, because you realized for yourself that your home that you grew up in, that your home that you grew up in, or like your hometown, is actually the place where you want to be. And maybe your friends tell you, oh, why are you going back? Didn't you move to get away? Wasn't that your step out of your comfort zone, and now you're going back to your old home? Well, don't listen to them. Like, obviously you can, I feel like I said obviously a few times now, but you can, of course, ask your friends for advice, but you in the end have to think of what feels right to you. And if going back to your old place, to your old home, feels right to you and feels like an expansion for you, it's like this awakening that you have, that you tried this new thing, you tried to move, or you tried living in a different city, different country, but you realized actually home is home, like where you grew up. So that's amazing. That's you figuring out what you want your life to look like. And just because someone else says, well, why are you moving back? That seems like going a step backwards, right? Don't listen to them. If it feels right to you, do that. And that's actually one thing I say to people that reach out to me about moving to New Zealand. So I moved to New Zealand when I was 23. I made the decision to pack my bags and travel to New Zealand and basically start a new life here. And I knew deep down, if it doesn't work out, I can always go home. There's nothing wrong with it. And of course, thoughts like, oh, what will other people think of me if I say this is my dream and I go to New Zealand and I realize, oh, I want to go back home. If I wouldn't have thought that, I probably would have never gone, because I would have thought about, oh, what if it doesn't work out? What would people think about me? It doesn't matter. Like, don't let this stop you from trying something, okay? So if I now would feel like I want to go back home to Germany, I know that it would be possible. I know that there are chances, like, I know that I could move back. I know that I could get a job in Germany. I know this is possible for me. And I just want you to know this is possible for you too. Just because you're trying something new doesn't mean you can't go back to your old life. So I think a lot of people don't even try because they're scared of what if it doesn't work out. But oh my gosh, what if it does work out? What if it does work out better than you've ever imagined? And even if it doesn't work out, you can always go back. There's nothing wrong with it. You've been expanding. You've been trying these things. You've been coming closer to the person you want to be because you tried something and realized, oh, this is actually not how I thought it would feel like. But at least you tried. At least you don't have any what ifs in the future. One thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, knowing what their expansion is, knowing what their comfort zone is, and knowing how to step out of it, is because a lot of people don't really know who they truly are. Because we are living in this busy world where we're always distracted. We have social media to get distracted from our life, from ourselves. We literally watch other people's life. Nothing wrong with social media. I mean, I post on social media as well, but I just want you to become aware of how you're using it, and also becoming aware of making time for yourself. Are you making time for yourself? Are you making time to get to know you and who you are and what is important to you? I want to share another important fact here, and that is that we change, right? We change all the time. We have new experience. We change as a person. We grow, we develop, we have experiences, and so on and so forth. And what felt for an expansion for me in the past nowadays feels like a contraction. But that's because I changed. That's because I changed my definition of success, for example. So 2 years ago, I started my own business. I quit my secure job and I started my own business. And for me, expansion meant hustling. Like working, I worked from 7 to 7. Like I felt like I was working 24/7 to grow my business. And I thought the more clients I have, the more successful I'll be. I thought the more busy I am, the more successful I'll be. I thought the more money I make, the more successful I'll be. I thought the more clients I have, the more money I make, the more successful I'll be. This now feels to me like contraction. I don't want to go back to that mindset. But I needed probably to have this mindset, to have the mindset that I have now. Because now for me, expansion means dreaming big, having these goals of being successful, but living slow, living my true self, making time for my self-care, making time for my mental health, making time for me, knowing what I need. For me, expansion now is working less and taking more time for myself. For me, successful means now the more fun I have, the more successful I am. It's not the more I work, the more successful I am. For me, expansion today is the more fun I have, the more successful I am. Living that lifestyle, deciding to not work Monday, deciding to move things around and take the day off. That is for me now success. That is for me expansion. I, of course, still love what I do and love working with the clients I have. But for me now, success means having my boundaries, working certain hours a day, and after that, having time for myself and making this time for myself. That is now expansion for me. 2 years ago, that would have been contraction for me, because I would have thought, oh, I'm taking the afternoon off. I'm not where I am. I'm not earning the money that I should earn. I'm not as successful because I'm not working that many hours. Honestly, if I think about my younger self now, like 2 years ago, I wish I could tell her like, whoa, is this really making you happy? But you have to go through these stages to figure out what is expansion for you. And in each stage of life, it's also different, because back then I just started my business, and that was expansion for me. For me, that was connecting with as many people as possible, helping as many businesses as possible. Whereas now for me is working with certain businesses and helping them to grow on Instagram. In case you don't know what I'm doing, I'm a social media coach and manager, and I do that for a living. But I also changed over the last year, like actually in 2023, I started offering personal growth coaching on my personal Instagram, Johanna Liana. And that for me is expansion now. Helping others to live their best life. That is something I love doing. And I'm so excited to be offering a new group coaching in February, where I help you to figure out, for example, what contraction and what expansion means to you to live your most authentic life. I help you to figure out what it is that you truly want and how you want to live your life. And if you're interested in that, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. If you want to join my group coaching in February, you can join now. And I even have something really exciting as well. You will also get access to the Aligned Life Mastery if you want the whole mindful evolution pack, or I call it the Mind Code, because my new coaching will be called, or is called, Mindful Evolution. And you can sign up for Mindful Evolution and add the Aligned Life Mastery on top of that, and you have the Mindset Code. So if this sounds like something for you, just check the link in the show notes. But yeah, coming back to the topic, like for me today, expansion is dreaming big, having my big vision, but living slow, living my true self, making time for myself, having the morning off if I want to, and making this possible for me. That is expansion. Whereas in the past, this would have felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not successful enough. I'm not busy all the time. I don't know how to explain this, but I hope you understand what I mean. I want to say that your contraction and expansion changes over time. And also everyone is different. So don't compare your expansion to someone else's, your step out of your comfort zone to someone else's. And just because you're going back to something doesn't mean you're closing your comfort zone, because once you expanded your comfort zone, it's expanded, right? One more thing that I want to say here, I just said that earlier, that I thought the busier I am, the more successful I am, and that my old version now, if she looked at my calendar, would think, oh my gosh, I'm not busy enough. I actually feel like I'm at this stage. My calendar looked so colorful. I think I talked about this in one of my last episodes, how I do the color coding, like with work, time for myself is a different color, workouts is a different color. And for me, my calendar looks really full right now in this stage, but in such a good way, because I make time for myself. I make sure that I live my best life, and I make time for the things I love, because life is happening right now. If we're waiting for some mysterious magical time in the future to make time for ourselves and time to look after ourselves, I just want to say this, that sometimes this magical mystery time will never come, because you're always gonna push it to in the future. Like, once I achieve this and that, I will make time for this and that. Like, your life happens right now, and it is just so important to always remember that life is happening right now. It's great to have goals. It's great to have like a goal in the future, but just remember that the time between those goals is your life. The time between those goals that you set yourself is what you would call your life one day. And I don't want you to look back and feel like you've wasted living to achieve your goal. This is just a reminder that your life happens right now. And to end this episode, I want to give you a little exercise. Think about what means expansion for you. One more thing that I want to give as an example is that my 2 year ago self wouldn't see having kids as an expansion. Back then, that would have been a contraction to me. Like, I was like, I want to build my business. I want to be successful. I want to get and help as many businesses as possible. That was me 2 years ago. And I also remember telling Jules, like, nah, I'm not going to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to be successful. I want to be independent. And that was me 2 years ago when I started my business. Well, guess what? I am now 2 years older, 2 years wiser maybe. I am changing, I'm getting older, and I can't wait to be a mom one day. I can't wait to take time off to be at home and raise my baby. And yes, that might change again, but that is literally what I feel like right now. And this means, in 1 or 2 years' time, 2 years' time probably, we're gonna start a family, and that is my expansion. That is what I see for myself, right? And maybe right now at this point, it would still be expansion, but we still have other goals like getting married first and stuff like that. But I'm now in a stage where this is expansion for me, and it is so beautiful. And 2 years ago, it wasn't, and it was for some of my friends, and I was so happy for them. And I just want to say here again, everyone's different. Expansion and contraction is so different for all of us, and it's so important to accept that and to know that just because this is not an expansion for you doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean like you're not at the right pace of your life. Everyone has a different timeline. Everyone has different idea of the perfect, best version of life for ourselves. So this is just your gently reminder. And as a little exercise today, I want to give you a little task. What does expansion mean to you in 2024? Make a list of things that you want to try. Make a list of how you want your 2024 to look like and how expansion feels to you. What expansion feels to you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and feel free to share this with friends. I put so much work and effort in these episodes, and I'd love to help more people to live their best life. And I hope you have an amazing day. Always remember, it's a beautiful day to have a good day. It's a beautiful day to be alive.